Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Mr. Ainsworth, and we're going to get into our final prep here for Algebra 1 final coming up in a couple days. All right, so go into Canvas and grab your prep here, number 5. Okay, it's on the right shown there. Put that into your OneNote and let's get started. Okay, uh, I will talk about the test taking strategy, okay, throughout the exam. So first, let me say that it's going to be 20 questions, okay, multiple choice format. So 20 questions, all right, multiple choice question format, okay? Now that doesn't mean you don't work things out by hand. So I'm going to give you a paper copy of the test. You're going to be working it out on paper like you normally do, and I'll explain that as we go, and I'll explain the type of questions that you're going to be asked to respond to. Okay, now the first one here deals with a quadratic function, a parabola, right? This is in vertex form, and hopefully you recall that. So let's grab your red pen here and let's write down vertex form. Y is equal to a times x minus h, quantity squared plus k. That's called vertex form of your parabola. This is what we did in Unit 7 here, where a is 2, where a equals 2, it's positive. All right, and because of that, it opens up. Okay, so opens up. That's important to know. It looks like this. All right, and any parabola that's concave up or opens up has a minimum. Okay, so this vertex here represents a minimum. So we have a min here, and the question is, what is the vertex? Now, in a multiple choice test, they may give you 4 graphs. And in order to pick the right graph, without using Desmos, which you're not going to be able to do or be able to use on this portion of the exam, all right, you have to know whether it opens up or down. That is determined by A, and A is positive, so it opens up. We have a min, but it's also important to know the vertex. And if you look carefully here, H is -3 and K is 5. So your vertex here is at -3, 5. So when choosing the proper graph, if they give you 4 graph options, you write down the vertex, you know it opens up, you know where it starts at the vertex here, you know A is 2, which means it follows the parent values where A is 2. So that's right 1 up 2, right 2, not up 4, but up 8. Okay, and so you have to look and use your parent values. So when A equals 2, okay, your parent function is equal to y is equal to 2x squared. So you're going to be using your parent values 0, 0. When you substitute in 1, 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2. So we'll write 1 up 2. Instead of write 1 up 1, we go up 2 because we have a equals 2. And then 2 squared is 4 times 2 is 8. So write 2 up 8. And remember, these are called the parent values. Okay, that's for a equals 2. Now, if a was 1, you'd use the different set of parent values. So you just have to respond to what's given here. Okay, and go back into your actual lessons. Everything is in here. I'm just reviewing. Okay. Number 2, they're going to ask you to graph a parabola in standard form. In order to do that, you have to know what the vertex is. Okay, so number 2 here, you have to find the vertex, and you have to know whether it opens up or down, whether you have a min or max and everything in order to graph it. And again, this is a multiple choice test, so they may give you 4 options, 4 graphs. To choose the right one, you don't guess, you figure things out. So to figure out the vertex in this case, we need to know what A is. A is 1, B is 6, and C is 8. Okay, and we know that to find the vertex, x is always equal to -b divided by 2a. This goes back to the very initial lesson when we started talking about parabolas or quadratic functions. So then you figure this out. So -6 divided by 2 times a, which is 1. -6 divided by 2 is -3. And then you find the y value by substituting this in. So you take -3 squared plus 6 times -3 plus 8. Well, that's 9 minus 18 plus 8. 9 minus 18 is equal to -9 plus 8. That's -1. So when you put these two together here, your vertex is -3 comma -1. Now, since a is 1, it opens up. all right, because this is positive value. And if it opens up, it looks like this is concave up, which means it has a minimum. So you would choose the right graph. You would look for the graph, okay, if they give you 4 graph options, that obviously opens up. It has a lead coefficient a equals 1, so it uses the parent values for a equals 1. And you would look for the one that has a vertex at -3, -1. So you have to do some work here, some investigative work, before you choose the 4 graph options. Again, this is a multiple choice test, which means that you have to do some research here, some side work, in order to choose wisely. Okay, so don't guess on the exam, guys. You won't pass it. All right, you choose wisely by investigating, do your work first. Okay, you find the vertex first, and then look at the 4 graph options and choose the one with the right vertex that opens up, that has a minimum at -3, -1. There we go. Now, number 3 is totally different. It says exponential, which one is exponential growth or decay? So your general form, if you go back to the beginning, is a times b to the x power. That's your exponential form. And the base here, b is equal to your base. All right. Now, if the base, if the base is less than 1, you have a decay function. And if the base is greater than 1, okay, greater than 1, you have a growth function. So what you want to do is you want to analyze the base. So let's do that. So here on the first one here, the base is 1/3. Base equals 1/3. It is greater than, excuse me, less than 1. So less than 1, so you have a decay function, a decreasing decay function. Okay, right here, the base is 4, okay, which is obviously greater than 1, so you have a growth function. And then here on this one, 0.25, the base is equal to 0.25. That's obviously less than 1, so you have another decay function. 0.25 is the same thing as 1/4, which is obviously less than 1. And this is not exponential. This is a quadratic, so this is non-exponential. So it's neither. It's a quadratic function. Has a degree 2. It's quadratic. Quadratic function. So it's not exponential. So you can't even say it's growth or decay because it is a non-exponential function. Okay, and that's number 3. Simple, if you know the basics. Okay, number 4, find the zeros. Okay, zeros are when y equals 0. These are called x-intercepts, and you find x-intercepts or zeros by setting y equals 0. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So here, I'm going to substitute 0 in for y and then solve for x here. Now, you could solve for x any way you like. You can factor, you can complete the square, you can use the quadratic formula. So you could use any method you like. So use any method. Okay, again, you have 3 options. You have quadratic formula. Method 1, number 2, you can factor, if it's factorable. And 3, you can complete the square. So you have to make a choice here. Now you can try factoring. And some of you guys are excellent at factoring. So what 2 numbers multiply to -24 and add to 5? Are there 2 such numbers? And if so, it's factorable. So we know 8 times 3 is 24, but one of them has to be negative. All right, and if you make 3 negative, so 8 times -3 is -24. Whereas if you add them, 8 plus -3 is 5. It's factorable. Okay, so I'm going to do some factor by grouping. So I'm going to split the middle term, so x squared plus 8x minus 3x minus 24. You split the middle term right here. 8x minus 3x is obviously 5x. You factor out your common factor, so x times x plus 8. Factor out a -3, so multiply it by x times 8. And then look at your common factor of x plus 8, so you factor that out. Multiply it by the remaining factors, okay, which is x minus 3. So we multiply it by x minus 3, and now you have what's called a zero product. Once you get to a zero product, then what you do is you set each one equal to 0. So here, when is x plus 8 equal to 0? When is x minus 3 equal to 0? One of these has to be 0, right, to have a zero product, because we know anything times 0 is 0. So here, the obvious answer is negative 8. Negative 8 plus 8 is 0. And here, 3 minus 3 is 0, so the obvious answer is 3. So you have two zeros. Okay? You have two zeros. And if you did have the ability to use Desmos, this is what you do. Okay, you type in your quadratic function, so y equals x squared, and then plus 5x, and then minus 24, and you'll notice if you adjust the screen, you have two x-intercepts, one at negative 8 and one at positive 3, and that's what they were asking. What are the zeros? What are the x-intercepts? Okay, and you notice y is equal to 0 in both of those. That's why we call them zeros. These are the values that make the function 0. Okay, that's where the name comes from. Okay, that's number 4. Number 5, they're going to ask you to graph a function in vertex form. And believe it or not, you can actually graph it in Eduelastic, so you'll have to read the directions on that. So vertex form, again, y is equal to a times x minus h, quantity squared plus k. You have to know that. It's called vertex form. We spent weeks developing this, so hopefully you remember this. All right, a is equal to 1, which means it opens up because it's positive, so it opens up. The vertex is negative 2, comma 1, and because it opens up, it looks like this, and parabolas that are concave up have minimums, so this is a min, okay? So negative 2, comma negative 1 is a minimum. And then what you're going to do on the computer is graph this. You're going to plot the vertex, okay? So you're going to plot this first, left 2 down, up 1. So they're going to give you a graph, and they're going to ask you to place the vertex at first. Okay, so you plot negative 2, comma, positive 1, so left 2, up 1. Okay, so you place the vertex there first, and then because it goes up, you go right 1, up 1. So we use remember, a equals 1, that means you have to use your parent values. So 0, 1, and 2, so 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, comma 4. So right 1, up 1. So I'll go right 1, up 1 from the vertex. Okay, and then you reflect it, and then you go right 2, up 4 from the vertex, and then you reflect it. So reflect. So plot and reflect. And believe it or not, you can do this on the computer in the Eduelastic program. So again, the key points are here. You plot the vertex, and then you plot your first point. You go right 1, and then up 1, using the parent value a equals 1. Okay, those are the parent values in that function. And then you have this parabola, and this should appear on your computer screen. If you plot the vertex first, and then you plot the second point right here when you go right 1, up 1. So you always plot the vertex first. All right, and that's how it's done. So they're going to give you some vertex form function, the parabola there, quadratic function, which we call parabola. You plot the vertex like we normally do by hand, and then you plot the one to the right of it. So you go right 1, up 1, and then the parabola will appear. It's that simple. Okay, number 6, given this exponential function, find f of 2, f of negative 3, and so on. So you want to substitute this in. So f of 2 is equal to 3 squared plus 1. All right, we substitute in the value. All right, here, sorry about that. So here x is 2, so you substitute 2 in. 3 squared is 9, so 9 plus 1 equals 10. And then you substitute negative 3 in. So 3 to the negative 3 power is 1 over 3 cubed. 3 cubed plus 1, and that's 1/27th plus 1, which is 1 and 1/27th. Okay, so remember, when you evaluate a base to a negative exponent, it does not give you a negative number. It reciprocates it and it makes it into a fraction. And then you cube it 3, and then you go 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. So you get 127 plus 1, or 127. Then you substitute in -1, evaluate it, you get 1/3 plus 1, which is obviously 1 and 1/3. Okay? So you have to be able to evaluate a exponential function. And we did that like for the last month. We've done it almost every day in all these exponential functions, because that was our last unit of our curriculum. Okay? And that's number 6. All right, number 7, they're going to give you some hypothetical situation here. In this case, here where you got some information on hours worked versus money earned. Okay, so hours worked is X values, money earned is Y values, and they're going to ask you if it's linear, quadratic, exponential. You know, how do you do this? Well, you take a look at the rate of change. And we did this like in the beginning of school, actually. We did this in first and second semester, okay? And so the rate of change from 1 to 2 is +1, that's called delta x, or the rate of change of x. And then here the rate of change of y, 12 plus 12 is 24, so the rate of change there is 12. And then here from 24 to 48, that's +24, and from 2 to 4, that's +2. And so on the right, these are delta y's, or the change in y. And on the left, we have delta x. And what we want to do is figure out the overall average rate of change here, which is always delta y divided by delta x. And so if you take here, if you take the 12 and you divide it by the 1, you get 12 here. So 12 divided by 1 is 12. So the rate of change is 12 here. Or you can take this one here, and to see if it's actually linear, the rate of change better be constant. So here, you got to take 24 divided by 2, and if it's the same as 12, then guess what? The rate of change is the same. So again, delta, you always take delta y over delta x. 24 divided by 2 is 12, and notice that these are constant. And we talked about that if the rate of change is constant, then you have a linear function. So this is actually a linear function, and it has a rate of change of 12. So then they're going to ask you maybe some other questions, like what's the money earned after 3 hours of work? Well, you can simply add 12, right? So 24 plus 12 is 36. So I have 3 hours work there. You're going to earn 36 bucks. Why? Because 3 times 12 is 36. In this case, you're making $12 per hour. Okay, that's what the rate of change is, $12 per 1 hour. So $12 per 1 hour worked. It's called the hourly wage, hourly rate, or hourly wage. Now, if you want to go backwards in time, like what do you earn if you work 0 hours? It better be 0, right? So if you go backwards in time, we're going to subtract here. If you subtract 12, 12 minus 12 is 0. So 0 hours worked, 0 money earned. Okay, and that would be your y-intercept. Okay, there we go. Just taking a look at rate of change, which is a very fundamental concept for linear functions. Okay, so just remember that if the rate of change is constant, it implies that you have a linear function. Not quadratic, not exponential, those are totally different. Okay, they don't have a constant rate of change. Okay, let's see, number 8. Okay, if they give you a rectangle, then they ask you the perimeter and area. Well, it's actually a very, very simple question. We know in rectangles that the opposite sides are congruent. So opposite sides are congruent, okay, or equal. Okay, so here the length is also w plus 15, and then the width straight across is the same as w. The perimeter is the distance around, so it's the distance around the figure, so the distance around. And then how do you find that? Well, you sum all sides. Sum all 4 side lengths. That's all you do. So the perimeter P here in this case would be w plus 15 plus the other opposite side, w plus 15 plus the 2 widths, w plus w. And so the perimeter in this case would be, let me see, there's 4 W's, and there's, let me see, 15 plus 15 is 30, so 4W plus 30. Now the area, that's different. That's length times width. And so you take W times the length, which is W plus 15, distribute through, you get W squared plus 15W. Okay, you get a quadratic function, believe it or not. Okay, and again, this is just basic fundamentals. Like in rectangles, you started learning about in, God, I think elementary school. Okay, they have 4 sides, opposite sides are equal. The perimeter is the distance around, which is found by adding all 4 side lengths, and the area is simply length times width. Okay, and you know how to multiply polynomials because we talked about that throughout the year. Okay, number 9. The height of a ball can be modeled by h of t here. After how many seconds will it hit the ground? Okay, now listen, when it hits the ground, that means h is equal to 0. Okay, 0 feet. All right, when the ball, it goes up and it comes back down, and when it hits the ground, the height's 0. So after how many seconds, okay, will the height be equal to 0? I don't know. Let's figure it out. Okay, so we set the function equal to 0. So let's take this height function, okay, which is h of t is equal to negative t squared, negative 16t squared, plus 24t plus 16, and let's set this equal to 0. And you can solve by any method. Solve using any method. So on the test here, guys, you're going to have paper, right, next to your iPads, and this is a multiple choice test. And they'll give you the possible, answers, but you don't guess. You figure things out, okay? And what I would do, since all of these are divisible by -4, I would divide by -4 first to make it easier, because this is something very simple to do. And then either factor in a quadratic formula or something. All right, so here we get 4t squared minus 6t minus 4 is equal to 0. I guess we should have chosen -8. Let me redo that. Let's divide by -8 instead. So divide by -8. That's better. Okay, and you get 2t squared minus 3t minus 2 equals 0. Oh, this is easier. Okay, let's try factoring. Okay, so let's do this. Let's do the factor game. Let's multiply here. So here we go. So 2 times -2 is -4. So what two numbers multiply -4 and add to -3? Well, I think -4 and 1 will do the trick. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 plus 1 is -3. So here we go. Let's split the middle term as -4t plus t minus 2. Again, I'm splitting the middle term here like we always do when factor by grouping, using these two terms right through here. And then you factor out the common factor. So out of the first group here, you can factor out a 2t. Out of the second group here, just factor out a 1, which means really you're not factoring out anything at all. All right, and then notice the binomials here, they have something in common here. These are in common. So factor the t minus 2, and then multiply by the remaining terms, which is 2t plus 1. Okay, so 2t plus 1. And if you don't want to factor like this, you guys, you could use quadratic formula if you want. You could use any method you like. Since the lead coefficient is 2, I wouldn't suggest completing the square because it's more difficult. But I would use either factoring method like I'm showing now, or the quadratic formula. So now you have a zero product, so either t minus 2 equals 0, or 2t plus 1 is equal to 0, which gives you 2t equals -1, and then after you divide by 2, you get t equals -1/2. Now, time cannot be negative, so over here on the left, you get 2 seconds. 2 seconds here. That sounds pretty good. Here, time can't be negative. Cannot be negative, so this is not a good answer, okay? It's called extraneous. It's an answer, you get an answer, but it doesn't make sense in the context of the problem because time can't be negative. All right. And there we go. That's using all kinds of skills that we've learned throughout the year called factoring and solving. And we actually did this problem here in our application portion of our lessons, okay, prior. Again, these are review problems, guys. Number 10, let's go back to multiplication. They're going to give you two binomials, and all you have to do is multiply them together. So here we go. So here you get 5x times 3x is 15x squared. 5x times 2 is 10x. And then you multiply through -1, so you get a -3x here. I'm going to line up like terms. -1 times 2, -2, and then you simply add. So like terms, 15x squared, 10 minus 3 is usually 7, especially on, today is Wednesday. And then here, this is a -2. Okay, so you have a quadratic. All right, so you use distributive property or FOIL. Okay, distributive property or the FOIL method. Okay, that's it. Number 11, solve by completing the square. So here, there are no two numbers that multiply to 4 and add to 8, so this is not factorable like it is. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and subtract 4 first. So here we have x squared plus 8x plus something is equal to -4 plus something. And then here you can only complete the square when the lead coefficient is 1. So lead coefficient must be 1. And it is right here. There's your lead coefficient. So LC equals 1. So to complete the square, you're going to take your B value. B is 8 here. And you're going to take B divided by 2 and square it. So 8 divided by 2 squared is equal to 4 squared, or 16. So you're going to add 16 to both sides. Okay, this is called to completing the square. You always take B, which is your middle coefficient, which is 8, divided by 2 and square it. And then add it to both sides. Okay, so let's do that. We did that. Now you factor. Okay, so here we go. So now we play the factor game. So do we know two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to 8? Yes, we do. Okay, so two numbers that multiply to 16 and add to 8 are 4 and 4. So here, x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16, -4 and 16 is 12. You factor out, x here. So x times x plus 4. Factor out the 4. You get the same binomial. And then you get x plus 4 times x plus 4. And remember, in this technique, they're always the same. So this is always going to transform into a binomial squared. And when this happens here, you're going to square root both sides. Now the square root of x plus 4 squared gives you x plus 4. And that's going to give you, that's equal to plus or minus root 12. Now root 12 is the same thing as a root 4 times root 3, which is the same thing as 2 root 3. So you have x plus 4 equals plus or minus 2 root 3, and then all you have to do is subtract 4, and then you have x is equal to -4 plus or minus 2 rad 3. And notice no calculator needed, okay? You just have to use your skills. This is what we've been developing for the last 3 months, factoring and solving and simplifying, okay? And again, this just shows that you can actually apply what you've learned throughout the year, guys. Now, number 12, it says find the exponential function given the graph. So let's take a look at this more closely here. All right, so we know this is a decay function, first of all, because it's decreasing. So it's decreasing. It's going down. Just take a look at it. It's decreasing. Because of that, it's a decay function. And because of that, the base has to be less than 1. Okay, that's the first thing we notice. So right away, if you look at the bases on all of these functions here, there's 4 possible functions. The base on the first one is 1/2, the second one's 1/2, the third one's 1/2, and then guess what? This last one here, the base is 2. So you want to think wisely here. So right away, you could rule this one out. This is growth. So you rule this one out. And the question is, which of the other ones does this represent? Okay, so first of all, this point right here at 4, 0, 4, this is called the y-intercept. And it has a point 0, 4. It's at 4 units. So if I substitute 0 in, I should get 4 out for the y-intercept. So here, if I substitute, if I say, if x is 0, what's y? Well, let's put 0 in. So it's 3 times 1/2 to the 0 power. That's 3 times 1, or 3. So that doesn't work. So this one's out because 0, 3 is not the right y-intercept. We should get 4, not 3. Okay, on this one here, so we substitute 0 in. So 4 minus 1/2 to the 0 power. 4 minus 1, that's 3 again. So this one's not it. So here we take 4 times 1/2 to the 0 power, and that's 4 times 1, which is 4. That's it. Okay, so C is it. So you have to do some work here, guys. When you approach a test, you do a lot of side work and some investigation before you select on the test. And that's where a lot of people get test taking wrong, is that they do not do any work on the side and investigate and think about it. They merely just choose unwisely and they guess, and guessing is not good. Do not guess on the exam, okay? Do not guess, because you'll most likely get it wrong, all right? Do some side work, do some research. That's number 12, all right? Number 13, a fish pond has 44 tadpoles or polywogs. They estimate the population will double right there every year. Okay, double means that you're going to have a 100% increase. So the growth rate is 100%. And because it will double, we're talking about growth, we need to write a growth function model. So here the future value is equal to the initial times 1 plus r to the t power. And if r is 100% or 1, that means r is 1, which kind of makes sense because we're doubling. When you substitute 1 in for r, the base is going to switch to 2, which means you're doubling, okay? And the initial value I is 44, so your function looks like 44 times 1 plus 1 to the t power. Simplify that, 44 times 2 to the t power, and again, you're doubling. Okay? And then it says use the function to estimate the population in 3 years. So that would become your future value here would be a sub f, future value, future amount, would be 44 times 2 to the 3rd power. And of course, if this was the case, it'd probably allow you to use your Desmos here. Let me see. Let me bring in Desmos one more time. There we go. So you type it in. So 44, right, times 2 to the 3rd power, because there's 3 years. And there's going to be about 352 tadpoles. There we go. All right, because you're doubling. And if you want to figure it out just the intuitive way, okay, you start off with 44. 1 year goes by, you double it, which means you times it by 2, so you have 88. Another year goes by, you double it, so you times 2. Just watch how we go. So 44, so 44 times 2 is 88. And then you go times 2, which is 176. All right, another year goes by, it doubles, so times 2 again, right? Times 2, guess what? You're at 352. So you could use the function, or you can just think about it. Okay, this is 1 year, 2nd year, another year, and another year. 3 years go by, you keep doubling. All right, the key word is double. So double, right? Times 2, times 2, times 2. That's what doubling means. So you can answer these questions actually just by writing it out and doing what it says by reading. Okay, you could use the function, of course, and you can also just step it out. Okay, and that's number 13. Number 14, solve by graphing. Well, believe it or not, they're going to give you some inequalities, and they're going to say, hey, which of these 4 graphs represents your solution? And again, you do not want to guess. All right, I'm going to give you guys some graph paper. You're going to graph it, and you're going to pick the right one. But you have to remember some basics. Okay, now this goes back to the beginning of the year, but also in the beginning of first semester here when we talked about systems. This is called a system, and it's a system of inequalities. And if you want to go back to your original lessons at home tonight, you can. You have OneNote, so you have all your lessons on your iPad. And they're in slope-intercept form, so y equals mx plus b, where m stands for your slope. Y represents your y-intercept, or b represents your y-intercept. Okay, so here the slope is 2, the y-intercept is 1, and then it's greater than, which means that the solutions are above. So it's going to be dotted, all right, and above, because it's greater than, okay? So what we want to do is plot at 1 here, and then go up 1. The slope of 2 is up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1, and we dot it out. And the solutions right there are going to be above it. Okay, switching colors, go purple now. So now the slope is -3 and the y-intercept is -2. So -3 over 1, the y-intercept is -2. So down here at -2, and then you go left 3 down, down 3, right 1, down 3, right 1, down 3, right 1, switch it. Okay, go up 3, right, left 1, up 3, left 1. Now this is going to be right here. I see less than or equal to, so this is going to be solid and below. So when we graph this here, it should be a solid line, and then you graph below it. Okay, and then you look at the intersection. So you find the intersection, so let's grab a color here. And the intersection is where they overlap, and they overlap in through here. So this darker color. So look for the intersection. So this is called the solution region. So you're going to do this first. You work it out first by hand, and then you select the correct graph. You just don't guess, okay? Because if you do that way and you don't investigate first and you don't look for the solid versus dotted lines and you're not using the slope and y-intercept, you're gonna make the wrong choice. All right, so you do your side work first, okay, on graph paper, and then you make your selection. Because again, this is a multiple choice test, but that doesn't mean you guess. You work it out first, and then you make your selection. Okay, last one, number 15. Solve the system using any method. Okay, we have different methods. We have method of substitution method. We have the elimination method. And you have a graphing method. You can choose any of the methods. Now, if you choose substitution, like this is kind of, when they're both equal to y, I usually use substitution method. You substitute in. And you know that in the first equation, y is -2x minus 4. So you substitute that in, and you set it equal to the other one, 3x plus 1, and then you solve for x. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to subtract 3x here on both sides. And then I'm also going to save time. I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So -2x and -3x is -5x. The 4 minus 4 cancels. All right, those cancel to 0. Those cancel to 0. 1 and 4 is 5. So we have right side of 5. Divide by -5. And you get x is equal to -1. All right, and then you have to solve for y. So pick an equation. I picked the second one, that's easier. So y is 3x plus 1. Substitute this in. So y is equal to 3 times negative 1 plus 1. That's negative 3 plus 1. So y is equal to negative 2. So your solution is negative 1 comma negative 2. Now you could solve this by graphing too, or you could do an elimination method. You could do it any way you like. If you since you have graph paper, you could graph these, both of them. Let's see here. Let me get a graph here. Watch this. Okay, so here's your. Let me draw a little graph here. So if you want to use graph paper, you can. So watch this. So you're going to graph the first one, negative 2x minus 4, so you go down 4, and then you have a slope of negative 2, so you go down 2, right 1, and then reverse it, up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1, and so on. And then, so you draw that line. There's your first one. Okay, then here's your next one. So 3x plus 1, so you start at 1, and you go up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1, then you reverse it. Down 3, left 1, there's my solution right there. So you draw that line, okay? And then your solution is where they intersect. It's right here. Solution. And it's at negative 1 comma negative 2. Left 1, down 2. And guess what? That is the same. So if you want to solve by graphing, I just showed you that method. If you want to solve by substitution, you could use that method. You could use any method you want. You just have to use your skills, okay, and get good. You gotta display that you guys learned something through the year. That's the whole point of a final, okay? And there you go. Hopefully that helps you out, right? And I've took time to develop this for you guys, and hopefully this will help you be more successful, because I want to see you guys successful. But you got to work at it, and you got to earn it. I'll see you on test day. This is Ainsworth. Bye-bye.